Hi, I'm Stunning Stella Cheeks.
And I'm the Enigma Erin Klein.
And this is
Not Your Demographic.
We used to be a feminist wrestling podcast.
Shockingly, we'd rather talk about literally anything else now.
Welcome to the podcast.
Hello, everybody, and welcome. Here we are, on the internet where we always are.
I think it's so funny that you say that every time, like it's a new occurrence.
Well, because we did this podcast for like 5 years in person, and so it still feels, even after like a whole year of doing it on the internet, it still feels very weird to be doing it on the internet.
I don't know. I see you in real life too much, so this works.
That's fucking truth. I'm gonna spend a whole day with you recording tomorrow.
Yeah, you love it. Recording secret new project.
Ooh,
that is causing me a lot of anxiety.
I'm excited about it. I'm having a fucking great time.
Yeah. I'm excited for our tester, and I'm really excited for our pilot, and I started working on our pilot, and I was like, wait a minute, I'm working on the wrong thing.
I did the same thing. This is a little bit of a spoiler, but it was originally going to be something else for our pilot, and I watched all of that, and then started doing research, and was like, this isn't going to work. We need something different.
I'm glad that you realized that, because I was like, it's her thing. That's the point of the podcast. It's not really my whatever.
Yeah.
Anyways,
it'll work
enough,
later. Whatever.
Enough
vagary.
How are you?
I'm doing really well.
Aside from your back hurting.
My back hurts constantly all the time because I'm pregnant, but other than that, I'm feeling pretty good. I have started to feel the baby kicking, which is fucking weird and very strange. It's funny because Michael is so excited about it, and so like every day he's like, "Can I feel it? Can I feel it?" And then he'll put his hands on my stomach and be like, am I feeling what I think I'm feeling? I have no idea. I was talking to Emily, pizzazz. I was like, are we weird that we're like second guessing it? She was like, no, we did the same thing for like weeks. We were like, that can't possibly be what we're feeling. And then it was like, oh no, that's definitely like a human moving inside of you. So getting used to that. It's super weird. But other than that, I'm feeling really good. I've been like trying to stay active more, which has been really helpful to like consciously be working on that. I got a Fitbit because Michael and I were like, we literally have to like track this and be better about working out because I can't dance anymore. And so we were like, let's just do this. Let's just pull the trigger and get some Fitbits and like try to go on a bunch more walks. And we've been there's a diner really close to us, and we decided we're going to be regulars at this diner. And so we go there for breakfast like every morning now.
I love that.
It's been great. We like the two waitresses who work there in the morning, like know who we are now and like know what our orders are. And are like, one of them was like, it's been so nice having you guys as regulars. You're so pleasant. We were like, oh, thanks.
I can't imagine most diner regulars are pleasant.
That's what she said. She was like, most people come in the morning and they're just in horrible moods every single day. She's like, you guys are just so nice. We were like, oh yeah, we live really close, so it's not like we have to get up super early in order to do this. That's the whole point of being a regular there, is that it's like 3 blocks from our house. So I've been doing good. I feel like making positive moves, healthy habits. I'm almost exactly at the halfway point of being pregnant. So I'm like, now is the time to build these habits so that when my life falls apart in 4.5 months, I'm prepared for it. How are you?
I'm doing okay. I don't know. I just mostly dissociated this week. And then at the end of the week, I was like, oh no, I have a lot to do. Oh no. I worked like all 4 jobs yesterday, and I was like, oh yeah, this is terrible. How did I do this for 30 years?
I feel like this happens for like so long. Every 6 weeks you're like, oh yeah, light bulb, this is terrible.
I had a day where I like had therapy in the morning, and then I worked on podcast stuff, and then I went to the flower shop stuff and did all this plant maintenance, and then I did 4 hours of wrestling, and then I performed in a show. So I'm kind of and the night before, I'm a fucking idiot. The night before, I stayed up till like 1 a.m. reading fan fiction. So I got like no sleep either.
Dumbass.
It was really good. They were undercover detectives in a fake relationship, and then it became a real relationship.
Who's they? Which they?
That one was Cass and Dean. But this morning I read a McSpurk, so, you know, I like to mix it up.
Ridiculous.
I left a comment on the fic because it was, like, Kirk-centered, and I almost wrote baby, and I was like, oh, nobody's going to know what that is. Anyways,
oh, Jesus.
I am, as always, a parody of myself.
Yes.
But other than that, doing pretty good, I guess.
Good.
My hair looks pretty good today, so.
Your hair looks great.
Thank you. So, now that we've touched base and Erin has got her life together and I'm reading fan fiction until 1 a.m., we actually have a special guest on this week. We have one of our very best friends on the podcast, and he's coming on to be weird with us, but also to talk about his really cool project. So please welcome Warwick Johnson onto the podcast.
Hello, hello. How's everybody doing?
Well, you heard. I'm Polly
Yeah,
Mark.
you heard.
She's doing
you
good.
Were there.
I don't know. I don't have a good Arsenio like entrance. Intro. I don't know why I picked Arsenio Hall. There are other talk show hosts.
That's it.
But that's it. That's my
That's
favorite
it.
reference.
That's who you are. That's the only reference you have.
So I've just been started in grad school for the last 3 weeks, which has been super fun.
Hell.
But I am also I am also about 10 to 13 years older than every other person in both of the classes that I'm taking. So I am like, oh boy, I constantly feel like this just like the unfrozen caveman lawyer who just can't
Yes.
make actual references with the kids in the class. Like there's one guy who's like obsessed with Four Loko, and I'm just like, oh my God, like come on, man.
You're like, I remember when Four Loko was the real Four Loko and it would kill you.
Yeah,
Right?
Like, what are you doing?
Back in my day.
Right? This weird new shit in. Well, don't talk to me unless you almost died on Four Loko.
One of my favorite stories that my husband tells is Nick used to go to college parties when we were in college. He was a college student. He was a creep. And he would party or whatever. And then before he would go home, he would shotgun a Four Loko and then run home to try and beat it home before it hit. It's the most hilarious thing, especially if you know Nick, because he was like, well, I'm going to turn this into a competition with myself.
So Stella's husband and I went to college together, but I was a senior his freshman year. So the first time that I met him after Stella and Nick had started dating, I saw him and I was just like, yeah, I know who your boyfriend is. Like we met years and years ago. He comes up to me, he's just like, I'm sorry I was so weird in college. And I was like, man, everyone's weird in college. Like you don't have to worry about that. The first thing he says to me is just like, sorry I was so weird in college, man. I was like, yeah, that's cool.
That's cool. It's fine. Yeah, I remember being in grad school, and I wasn't 10 years older than everybody, but I was at least a good 5 years older than a lot of people. And because DePaul does that thing where they do the double demon, where if you go directly from undergrad into grad school, it is a discount. So
Yeah.
a lot of people just do that, which I think it's good monetarily, but I think it's stupid life-wise, or else I'd be walking around with a master's in theater. LOL, what the fuck?
And there's a couple people in my grammar class that are still undergrads. So they are taking this
mixed
class. They're last level. They're last year of undergrad. I'm just like, ooh, no, don't do that. That's great. That's crazy. What are you doing?
It's so funny. I remember working a conference event or something at DePaul, and I was older or whatever, and I was with a bunch of undergrads because it was a pop culture conference. I don't know. My degree is fake. And
All degrees are fake.
that's
All
true. That's
degrees
true.
are fake.
Everything's a scam. Money's fake. This is all fake. But this girl was on this weird tangent, and she was like, I just can't wait till I'm 30 because I'll just have it all together. And I just started cackling wildly, uncontrollable. She wasn't even talking to me. And I was I laughed so hard that I started to tear up. And she was like, what? And I was like, that's the craziest thing I've ever heard. I was like, I'm 31, and I don't have it together. And she was like, yeah, but you're married. I was like, do you think that means I have it together? That doesn't mean anything. Like, I love my husband, but like, that doesn't mean shit.
No, you can get married at 18. It doesn't mean anything.
I was like, all right, like, it's good to have hopes and dreams. I'm just like, be prepared for like the crushing weight of reality to ruin your life. I hope
Oh
it
my
works
God.
out for you.
When I went back to college, it was sort of the same thing. I was in my late 20s, and I took a couple of classes. I went to DePaul's. This doesn't exist anymore. This college has been disbanded and made into something else, but it was called the School for New Learning, and they only accepted people who were 24 and over because there were a lot of people going back who were like, I don't want to be with actual children. It makes me feel awful. And so this college was specifically for people like me who were a little older and some people who were much older. But a couple of the classes I took were mixed. And so I was with like 18-year-olds and I was like 10 years older than them. And I just had this realization during my first semester back, like, oh, the pressure's off. I don't have to make friends with any of these people.
I got friends.
I don't have to talk to any of you. I don't need to come to any of your social obligations. I don't give a fuck about, because I was working full time and then would go to class afterwards. And it was like, yeah, I don't care. I have a whole ass job that sucks and I don't need to worry about any of this bullshit. It was very freeing in many ways, but there was that like first couple weeks where I was just like, I'm a dinosaur. I'm so much older than everybody else. In the end, it was worth it though, because like you said, like I have friends. I don't need any of you to be my friends.
I came here to be the teacher's pet.
I'm paying my own money for this. Fuck that.
Only thing I was gonna say, so the one thing I have noticed though too is because I'm older and I'm most of the time I'm just like, yeah, it's cool. I'm doing this because I want to do it. Is that I'm the only one who'll talk in class sometimes. Like in my grammar class, it's like, what's this thing? I'm like, it's that. It's this thing. Obviously, it's that thing. What's wrong with you? And like nobody, and like everybody else is just like heads down. They're like, don't call on me. And I'm just like, that's a direct object. What are you talking about? Get the fuck out.
That's why I said I'm not here to make friends. I'm here to be the teacher's pet. That's real. When you choose to go back to school, you're like, I'm here to participate. Like, I actually want to learn. My mommy didn't make me come here.
Yeah.
Anyways, tangents about being old in school aside, tell us about your project. I have a bunch of the copies of the early ones. It's super cool, but I also just want you to talk about it because I don't want to mess it up.
So this past Wednesday, we launched a Kickstarter for the Empty Grave Complete Collection trade paperback. So this is a Western, like a supernatural Western comic book series that me and Dan Hale have been doing for the last several years, very long. But we're releasing the fourth issue individually very soon, and this is going to be a giant-sized issue. So it's 48 pages long, so it's almost twice as long as most of the other issues, and definitely twice as long as the first issue. And we are then doing a trade paperback at the same time, which is going to collect all 4 issues, and we've got a bunch of fun extras, behind the scenes stuff. So I'm putting a page together where we go from script page to Dan's inks to the colors to the letters.
To our signal chat where you ask us which colors we like the most.
So that, and the
that's an important part in your process, Warwick.
It's a very important part where I'm just like, this looks weird, right? Like, does it look like that guy's dick is out? I mean, not yet, not exactly, but.
And I'm like, no, it should definitely be out and be bigger. That's my note.
It's yeah, so I'm really excited about it. So Print Ninja is doing the trade paperback for it, and we've already gotten a great response on the Kickstarter. We're at 73% funded according to Kickstarter.
Fuck yeah!
So
in like less than a week. That's kick ass.
Yeah, so we intentionally set the goal a little lower because whatever we don't make in the Kickstarter, I can just self-finance. So the more, but the big thing that we're doing with the Kickstarter is we're treating it like a pre-order. So basically, it's like if you want to get a copy of the book, sign up for the Kickstarter, just sign up for the trade paperback level, or like we've got a bunch of other different fun rewards that you can add on to it. But if you sign up for that stuff, you're guaranteed to get a copy of the book. We're working on setting up like a local signing pickup thing, so people that are in Chicago will be able to like possibly go to like a local comic book store and you can get the book, get it signed by me and some of the other like special guest artists that are doing stuff for it.
Cool.
And then if you do that for like the local option, then we're gonna have a couple extra like fun extras since you won't be paying for shipping. Like,
Do
so
you
like
want me to be there dressed up like a cowgirl?
sure, yeah.
Okay, great.
Well, cosplay people are definitely invited. One of my dreams is that someone is going to show up at a convention dressed up like a character that I created. So like that's how I'll know I made it.
Maybe like, I did it.
Hell yeah.
I fucking
mean,
did it.
We could easily cosplay, I believe her name was Elizabeth and Annie. We've like both have those looks.
Yep.
I binge read all of this yesterday and read the first 22 pages of the 4th issue and was like, I got to the end of because Warwick sent us the first half of it and I was like, well, what the fuck now? I want to read the rest of it. So I'm very excited for the rest. I also have already backed the Kickstarter, so I'm excited to get my book when it comes out.
Awesome. Yeah. I'm good. I'm glad that you liked it. The 4th issue is probably my favorite thing I've ever written. Which
It's
is
really good.
It's hilarious because most of it was written at like coffee shops and bookstores in Oxford. So because I didn't have anything else to do during the day, so,
Fancy.
I wasn't there doing anything smart. I was literally just tagging along as someone's like, like luggage mule and stuff, and I got to like go around England for 6 weeks.
That sounds smart as fuck. I'm just gonna put that out there. I would love to be someone's luggage mule and go to England for 6 weeks. That sounds dope as hell.
Yeah, so they got to go to like museums and do actual science and archaeology work. And I was like, if I buy this pot of tea, maybe they won't kick me out for 4 hours and I can write this comic book in this corner, at this, on this table in the corner. So, but it turned out really well, and I'm very excited for people to read the 4th issue, and and everything all together. So, yeah, it's fun. So for people that
it is. It's super fun. I feel like.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I have read a lot of your writing because I like am one of your, I guess, beta readers.
Yep.
But I, as a feminist podcast, a former feminist podcast, I guess I don't even remember our tagline anymore. But Warwick writes like women really well too. So
Yes.
like it's not just like a Western cowboy shoot 'em up, which is great. Don't get me wrong, but like. If you're like normally like, well, I don't really like that stuff. Like Warwick is very good at writing women. So
Yeah, the characters are really well developed. They don't just feel like ancillary objects that exist in a lot of Westerns. Like the main character is a woman and is very well written.
Yeah, it's actually kind of funny. So, the Empty Grave started as a play that I wrote. I originally was going to pitching it for the Chicago Mammals, but it's hard to do a Western as a stage play.
yeah.
But I liked the play and I liked the story of it, and I wrote it for a friend of mine named Erin. Like I was like, you're gonna be the lead, like this will be great. And so then I've kept a lot of her, a lot of her look kind of went into the design of Annabelle when we transitioned over to the comic, and then things like that. So it's like a little kind of like homage to like the creation of it. So and so that's kind of fun. Like we did a staged reading of it, and there were a bunch of people that read different roles that ended up in the book. So, which is very fun. Like there's also some characters that are completely unique to the comic. Like Robert Hoffman, who's named after our friend Bobby, which is great.
Bobby of Extrax fame.
Extrax fame. When we did the Kickstarter for the first issue, there was a level that you could pay and you get a character named after you in the book. And most of
Robert Hoffman is also like a good cowboy name.
It's a great cowboy name. Also, like, I work with Bobby all the time and I'm very good friends with him, and literally never even occurred to me that that's what that was.
Oh yeah, no.
Well, because we never call him Robert.
Ever. No.
Robert. Yeah, everybody else that got that level gets killed in the second issue. So like
Hilarious.
The Pinkertons are two of my cousins, and they had gotten that level, so they just get brutally murdered. The saloon owner and somebody else, and then Robert, I came up with the idea for the character, and I was like, well, I haven't named anyone after Bobby yet. I was like, yeah, I'll use that, and then I literally just kept putting him in the book because I was like, I love this character. Like after I wrote the third issue, I was like, Robert's it. Like Robert's the hero. Like along with Annabelle, like it's the two of them, So. And there's some really fun moments for him in the fourth issue because of that. So I was just like, yes, like this
I love that.
Yeah. So that's fun. So you're welcome, Bobby.
I love when like you're writing something and then like a character takes over and you're like, okay, I
Oh yeah.
have to go along with this, I guess.
Well, so I wrote the play in 2011, so that's how long this has been kind of in
Wow.
development. And the original ending of the play is completely different from the comic. Um, be part of it is I was a different person when I wrote the ending of the comic, and so like just as the stories as progressed, I was just like, no, I don't think this is how things go. Like I don't think this is what would happen. And like, what am I trying to do with it? And so even from when I wrote the third issue, the ending is different. So just things change and things evolve, and I think that that's a really cool part about art is that it kind of grows and develops. So um, you both know because you've been beta reading it, but I'm writing my first novel, and as I'm writing it, I'm realizing like how like such a big project, such a big writing thing, it really does take on a life of its own at times, and I enjoy that aspect of it because I feel like it makes the book read more organically
Oh, for
rather than
sure.
just being like,
Hmm.
no, 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 this is not what this was what I intended, so we're going to stick rigidly to this. Like things grow and change and evolve, and I think that's a lot of fun. So
I think that's just neat.
yeah,
I think it's
that's just
neat.
really cool.
Also, like, I mean, I guess the whole point of this podcast right now is to like gas you up a little bit and get everybody to read your stuff. But like, one of my favorite things about your writing is that I think you write action scenes really well.
I
Like,
agree.
especially like reading your novel, you know, it's hard sometimes about reading an action scene because you're like, well, who's punching what? Where's that hand? How does that work? That's not
Yep.
how bodies work. Where are we? But I feel like you write action scenes really clearly, which is good because you're writing a western.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Um, and I part of the thing I love about doing comics too is it's such a collaborative process. So Dan Hale has done the artwork for the vast majority of the book. So because he was moving and because of time constraints, he wasn't able to do three because he was working an actual job and stuff. But
Boo, actual jobs.
one of the only benefits of COVID is that everything was like delayed and pushed back and everything. So Dan really took his time and got to do these like amazing, gorgeous pages and stuff for the fourth issue. And it's like easily the best work of his career. But a lot of times for the action sequences, I'll be like, Dan, this is what I think happens. And like, I'll give you the main beats and then he'll fill in those beats like a lot. So in the second issue, there's this 2-page spread of an axe fight with Annabelle and somebody else. And literally, I think the script for it is just like 4 like sentences where I'm just like, they have an axe fight. At one point, Annabelle gets cut and then she does this. Like that, and that's it like that, and then everything else is just all Dan filling that in because he's such a great storyteller. Like Dan is such a tremendous artist and storyteller that he fills out this amazing fight scene that happens. So, and that's what I love about comics is like it is a medium that I think is wholly unique, and that's why it's always gonna be my favorite. I think. So, yeah, and
That
that's
was
that.
really sweet work.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I have my moments.
Yeah, I love like I like writing and doing stuff on my own, but like there's nothing better than like working on a collaborative project with somebody that you can just like click with and they like get what you're saying. Hence why me and Erin are entwined in
Work
each
on like,
other's.
yeah.
We started another project as a joke yesterday and then we're like, maybe we should just do it.
Is this in addition to the Skinner podcast or?
Oh yes.
Oh well, yeah, the unofficial channels is the best thing we've ever created. there's nothing better than that.
Yeah.
Uh,
What is it? Oh, it was a Batman Beyond episode, right? Where I was just like, Mitch Pledgey showed up. You gotta add it
Oh,
to the
it's on our
list.
list.
All
oh,
right, cool.
don't worry. They all go on the list.
It's all on the list.
Excellent.
So anything else you want to say about Empty Graves, before or anything our listeners should know before we move on to another segment?
Well, the big thing I'll say is that anyone who's a fan of westerns or a fan of just like kind of spooky comic book series and stuff, it's definitely a cool graphic novel to check out. If you are interested in it, you can go to warwickjohnson.com. I have the first 5 pages of all of the issues up on my website, so you can kind of
Nice.
read through them and see what happens. But it's a very I think it's a very fun series. I loved westerns so much like as a kid, but then also as an adult. So there's a lot of like Once Upon a Time in the West kind of ingrained in it. A little bit of like the Magnificent Seven. Like it's really kind of a love letter to the Wild West for me. And that's always what I kind of wanted to work in with it. So I think for people that enjoy both those things, it's definitely pretty cool. Definitely, definitely worth checking out. The Kickstarter is running until October 22nd. So you have some time to sign up for it, but if you do it sooner, we're going to add a bunch of fun stretch goals. So we're looking at adding some stickers that everyone would get, some like page size prints of different things. There are a
Me
couple.
and Erin cosplaying.
Yeah, yeah,
You
Stine
know.
cosplaying for the signing. There's talk of a T-shirt at some point, but I think that'll be a little ways down the road. And then a bunch of my friends have contributed art for the final issue. So, gonna try and like cajole them into offering up some fun little rewards too. Um, my buddy Jason is doing this ongoing series called By the Horns. That's terrific, and he contributes a page for the final issue that's super fun and crazy. So I wrote one-page stories for different people, and then they got to draw it and do different stuff. So
Oh, that's super fun.
That's very
yeah,
cool.
yeah, it's kind of cool, and it works in the story. It's not just like something that's like kind of tacked on for no reason. So it was really fun that I got to play around with that. And so one of the tiers in the Kickstarter is that you can get me to write a two-page story for you, basically based on like any characters and stuff that you want, and then that's yours. Like you can have it and you can publish it or whatever. Like that's it. So like that's kind of a fun little thing too. So if anybody wants a two-page comic fan fiction written, I mean that's an option. So
This is the
What
right
is
audience.
the rating parameters? Just kidding.
what is it? It's TV 47. So yeah,
Oh,
that's
okay.
the highest that it'll go. Anyone under 46 can't watch this.
Now I just want to do this and be like, I want you to write this to see if I can make Warwick blush.
We'll see. I mean, if it depends on how much X hamster research I have to do for it. That's the question. I don't know.
Oh my god.
Unbelievable. Okay. Well, I will link all of that stuff in our show notes and on our Instagram and on our Twitter. So don't worry if you are in the car and you didn't write any of that stuff down. There will be links available.
Yes.
But because we had work on, we wanted him to stick around a little bit longer because he's our friend or whatever.
Whatever.
But also because he read a book that we read and talked about on this podcast, and we want to talk to him about it. So it's book corner time, but we're going to start with Warwick because he had to read a book for grad school. Well, what book was it?
I did. It was Luster by Raven LeiLani.
Yes.
When you showed me your syllabus, because you were like, does anybody have any of these books? I was like, this teacher is wild.
Yeah. It's a narrative strategies class. So what we're doing is we're reading 5 different contemporary novels, and we're writing a story emulating something from that book, either like tone or even thematic stuff. So it's a very interesting idea, and it's a very fun course. We just did a discussion about Luster on Thursday, so we had to finish the book before class. It is wild. It's a wild book. And
That's
it
like
was
putting it lightly. It's wild.
Yeah.
wild.
If you haven't read it and you're worried about spoilers, we talked about it around spoilers last time, but like, warning, because I just want to be able to talk about this book.
Yeah. So I did not like the first half of it. And then I think once it was mostly Edie and Rebecca, I liked the book a lot more. So
So when it
surprise,
was just the
surprise.
women.
When it was just the women, surprise, surprise, the white man in it is the least interesting character and is super
He
boring.
sucks.
He
sucks
sucks.
so hard. But that's the point. He like
I mean,
by
they
the
all
time
suck.
but
Yeah.
but by the time you get to the end of the book, like he especially sucks, and you like
Yeah.
it is very clear like everyone knows that he sucks, and so you get like the payoff at the end of like,
Yep.
oh, I'm glad I sat through this because I got to this like, yeah, don't worry, he's a piece of shit, like a huge piece of shit.
Yeah, the
For
back half of the book was much better because of that. Like they really kind of, addressed that stuff. Sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna say for people who don't know, so like this is a book where the main character's life is kind of falling apart, and she enters into a relationship with a man in an open marriage, but then she gets evicted from her house, so she moves into their house,
Their house.
Nightmare.
and then she like
Fucking nightmare.
kind of becomes a nanny to their kid, but kind of becomes like a frenemy to the wife, and the whole time you're like, are they gonna fuck?
Yes, it does feel like they're gonna fuck the whole time. Also, really important to note
yeah.
that the main character is a black woman. The man she's in this open relationship with, the couple, they're both white, and their daughter is an adopted black girl.
Right.
And so that's part of the dynamic, is that she becomes a nanny, not really by choice, but because she's like, you're really terrible at being a parent to this young black girl. And
Right.
I think the way that she talks about the way that they let her hair go completely uncontrolled and like don't teach her how to care for it at all, and she winds up wearing all these like Party City wigs, like
Yeah.
Wigs.
Yeah, I thought that the author did a really, really good job of that, and you got like pulled into the narrator's sense of like obligation about like someone has to fucking care for this child. Like it feels like it comes out of nowhere almost, the like additional parts of that, but again, it's like all of the women at the end is so much better.
Yeah, and in the discussion, some people were complaining that they thought that Akila, the daughter, didn't have as much of a character, or was kind of, and I don't think I necessarily agree with that, because I feel like
disagree with
her,
Yeah.
I feel like her and
She was like a
Edie's
sullen
relationship-
teenager. Like
Yeah.
it worked really well. Sorry, work.
No, that's true. Like that's what I was gonna say. Like her and Edie's relationship, I thought was pretty interesting, in the way that it slowly grew and developed, and she came to like trust her and everything. Like I was like, yeah, I thought that was all very good and interesting. And then like, sure, she didn't get as much development as like Rebecca, and also like Edie, who's the narrator, so we get all of her internal monologues, so we know like always like what she's thinking and what's happening and stuff in her life. But
Well, part of the like relationship between them too is because like Erin said, she has this like she feels this like obligation to help this teenage girl, but the teenage girl is still a teenage girl, so she's like, she wants help, and she wants like somebody that she can literally like see herself in to like help her with this stuff, because she's being raised by these white people, but also like she is a teenager and is like, oh, leave me alone, like
Yep.
don't be my friend, I don't want your help. And like I love the scene. I feel like she was a really fleshed out character. I love that she was like this like not closeted like nerd, and they like worked really hard on this cosplay, then that
Yep.
sucked, and then she was like, I'll just be a hura. It's fine. And I love that moment where like the narrator finds the girl's like Batman versus Superman fan fiction and reads it, and she's like, oh, this is like pretty good. And the girl's like, are you reading my fan fiction? She was like, yeah, I thought the like narration's pretty good. And she was like, okay, thanks. Please never read my fan fiction again.
Yeah, she was great. I felt like the middle of the book, like nothing happened for long stretches of it.
It was just like weird tension. Like the book was
Yeah.
like, what is happening? Are these people serious right now?
Yeah, and then so much happens at the end of the book that I was like, yeah, that's kind of what I like. I did appreciate that. I think it's very well written. That's the thing. It's not necessarily like I don't typically go in for books that are just kind of mostly about just like relationship things.
People ruining their own lives.
Yeah, people like bad people doing bad things to each other. I don't typically read those books. I prefer more of the like homeless drifter serial killer variety. But I really enjoyed the way it was written, and there were so many good things about the book that I was just like, I totally get why we read it for the class. And I was like, I thought it was pretty interesting. But man, like the beginning of the book where she's just like obsessed with this dude, and right away I was just like, no, this guy sucks. Like, what's wrong with
It
you?
really sucks.
I wanted her and Rebecca to run away together, or like kick Eric out, and it's just the three of them like hanging out in that house, murdering dogs and stuff. That was the book that I wanted.
Oh yeah, you want the serial killer variety.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Erin, let me ask you: did you think that Rebecca killed the dog?
Oh yes,
Yeah, it's so
100%.
obvious.
there's no way she didn't kill that dog. My
Oh,
professor
she
was
100%
unconvinced.
did.
Everybody else in the class was like, no, she murdered that dog. And he's like, I don't know. It's pretty ambiguous. I'm like, no, it's not.
No, it's not. It's not at all.
She finds that out about them, and then literally the next page, the dog has been murdered. And I'm just like, yeah, she did it.
And
She
she's
killed that dog.
a coroner, like, so she like knows how to like murder for sure.
Yeah.
Not that it would be hard to murder a dog, but like she's not like squicked out by like blood or anything. Like she
Right.
is like, there's that scene where Rebecca comes to her work and she's like, hand me this saw so I can saw this body open.
Yeah. It was.
I liked the like ending that like, because there's a resolution in that like a decision is made and they all go on a certain path, but it's not like a resolution that is typically found in a book. Like, it's not a happy ending, it's not a tragedy, it's a really mundane ending, and I liked that.
I'd actually kind of argue that it is kind of a happy ending because she has this like artistic awakening again, right? And so she has this desire to create something that she'll be remembered for, which is like most of the book. So one of the things that we had said in class is that it starts out as like a sexual story, but then it becomes much more of an artistic story, like an artistic awakening. And I
guess when I
artistic
say happy ending, I mean more of like the relationship becomes this like thing, or she ends up with Rebecca. So I guess I was thinking of it as like a happily ever after in like a like romance novel but like I totally see where you're coming from though.
Yeah. She signs up for a job that she doesn't want to work so that she can afford to live somewhere that she doesn't necessarily want to live, and she's not made it as an artist yet, and she doesn't know if she'll ever get there. So I mean, like, maybe it's just me, but I'm like, I hope that's not. That sounds that's very accurate to just how life is. So I'm not like, oh, that's such a terrible ending, because I'm like, oh.
Yeah, it was like, for how much crazy shit happened in it, it never felt fantastical. Like, it did feel like, yeah, this is probably happening somewhere in Iowa. Like,
well, is it okay? What I thought was fantastical was that she was like the head of these production assistants, and she isn't making enough money to save anything, and she's
New York,
splitting a room, like a shithole room on like the 6th floor. Like, how much?
That's super realistic. A production assistant doesn't make that much money. Yeah, I know someone who I'm not gonna totally blow up his spot, but I know someone who's the like head of production for some of the Warner Brothers series that happen out like on lot in California, and like he just now got promoted to have enough money to live in like a single bedroom apartment in California. Like, you don't really make that much money. Like, he started out as a prop assistant and like has slowly been working his way up, and like literally just now can afford to live by himself, and like had to live with like 3 other roommates for a really long time.
I guess that makes sense. But I guess in my experience, like, executive assistants and things make like a lot of money. And so that's why I was like, that seems interesting. But that's more of the corporate world, though. I think corporate finance world, it's such a huge pay discrepancy from like artistic endeavors, which is horrible.
Exactly.
I liked Lester a lot because of the writing. I don't think I would be like, oh, can't wait to read this book again, but I would definitely read the next book that LeiLani writes. Also, she's the woman who writes it is obviously a huge nerd, because like the last half of the book is so focused on New York Comic Con.
Yeah.
And there's all of these references to stuff, and I'm just like, oh yeah, no, total.
That scene when the like 2 girls in the car and their cosplay were like, hi, it was so cute.
Yeah. It was funny too, because they were talking about it for like a while, and they never call it New York Comic Con, and so I was just like, well, obviously it has to be. I'm like, but and then she was like at the Javits Center. I'm like, okay, yeah, cool, great. All right. Just making sure.
Well, I'm sure that name is trademarked, and so that's part of why she didn't put it into the book.
Because it's owned by Reed Pop.
Yep. So they'll come after you. Better watch out.
Better watch out for those corporate conventions.
Penguin Press. I don't know who published the book. But yeah, so I'm just starting reading a book called Valentine now, which is about Texas oil drillers in the 1970s. So should
That
be
sounds
fun.
interesting as hell.
Yeah, so I think that'll be a very different kind of book. So I think that might be a little bit more up my alley. But the cool thing is the woman who wrote it is a Chicagoan, so she's going to come by
Oh,
I think our
cool.
class next week or the week after. So
Hell
it'll be
yeah.
fun. Yeah, so that'll be pretty neat.
This class sounds awesome.
Yeah, I
It's
know.
really cool, and I like the professor a lot. And we had like the discussion on luster was like really good. I was like, yes, this is what I want grammar. This is what I want grad school to be. You know, my other class is like this dry grammar discussion where he's just like, these are the like here's the sentence, parts of sentences and sentence patterns, and I'm just like, oh boy.
I'm dying.
Yeah.
What did you read this week, Erin?
I read a weird hodgepodge of shit. For our book club, I read a play collection by Edward Albee, The American Dream, and Zoo Story. It was my pick for our very exclusive book club that nobody's allowed to join.
Well, because we read like a book and a play now, though we probably will need to drop down because Emily had a baby. We'll probably have to go to normal book club standards where you just read one book.
Whatever. But yeah, the play that I picked for my pick this time was Zoo Story, and it was in this collection that I already owned. That was Zoo Story and The American Dream. I had never read either of these, and
I find it so shocking that you never read Zoo Story in what's in between high school and grad school? Regular
College.
I was like height. Well,
I know. I agree. I think it was really weird. I think because the play reading class that I took was with Chad Badgerow, and he assigned a bunch of stuff to us that like he loved contemporary plays, and so I don't know that we ever read anything that was older than like the early aughts. And
Chad Badgerow, who cast me as a 16-year-old as like a 45-year-old woman like 6 times.
Yeah.
I never played anyone younger than 40 when I was in college, and I was just like, guys, this sucks. Like, I get it that I'm balding, but like, come on.
I either played like an old woman or like a middle-aged woman, or they were like, please play the young, fragile ingenue that is like going through a lot of trauma. And I was like, are these the two sides of my personality?
I got cast as men almost exclusively, and I was like, what are you trying to tell me about myself?
Okay.
Yeah, it was a very bizarre experience. Whatever. Chad Bander also said some very shitty things to me about typecasting that I like reported him to the head of our department about.
Yeah, he's an asshole, and I'm not cutting his name from this. So fuck that guy.
I had the director of my class like one time was just like Warwick, you're gonna get so much work as like the coworker or like the friend and like the guy who's just there at the bar, and I'm just like, thanks, I guess. Like, I don't know if that's a compliment or if it's just like you're just the side character all the time, and I'm like, cool.
Mm-hmm.
But then somebody else said there's like your big role that one day you'll be Biff from Death of a Salesman, and I'm just like, I don't want to do that.
I mean, that's a great role, but
It is
also
a great role, but apparently everyone that taught at Wesleyan just thought I was this like really sad like side character, and I was just like, oh jeez, oh boy, I don't know what vibe I give off.
I feel like a lot of directors at Loyola, and then like the couple plays they did before I was like, I hate theater, I'm gonna go take my clothes off, were like, she has a face that probably looks great when she cries. I mean, not wrong, but also like awful read to be like, she has a good trauma face.
So I was just gonna say I got constantly cast as men that had been gender swapped, sort of. It was like they were given female names, but then they wanted me to dress very androgynously. So it's like, are you casting me as a man? I'm confused about what's happening here. And then other than that, I got exclusively cast as characters that they wanted to play as like cartoons, like children's theater characters who were like
clinically insane people.
Well, yeah, cartoons. I played a lot of crazy people. I felt the same way, where it was like I was told constantly like, oh, I had several directors tell me this, which is like a fucked up thing to tell a like 19 and 20-year-old girl who's like in the throes of an eating disorder that she doesn't recognize, that I was too pretty to be the best friend, not pretty enough to be the ingenue. Several people told me that, and it was like, what the fuck? What does that mean? Like, it was such a horrible place to be pigeonholed in, and I was like, so I'm men? That's what that means?
Such bullshit.
Yeah,
I don't know.
It was not great.
Yeah. But but with Zoo Story, is it like very classic Albee? Because honestly, I'm just never really been a huge fan of his like.
Albee's
You would
weird.
not like this.
You would not like this.
Because Zoo
It's
Story is
super
one of the
weird.
ones I read, obviously, because we read it for our book story or our
Yeah.
book club. It's a short play. It's like it's a one act. It's like no scene changes. It's two guys on a bench. One of them's just trying to read his paper, and the other one's like, "I'm gonna fuck up your life."
I'm gonna fuck your whole life up. Yeah, it's. I really enjoyed it, but it was. I don't. Part of it is like the only thing I've ever read of Edward Albee's is Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, and I read it as a 17-year-old for a lit class, which is like not the right environment to be reading that. And I've never reread it since then. I really should. But he's just so weird, and part of what I liked about this particular collection that had the American Dream in it, which was very fucking weird, like even weirder than Zoo Story, is he included a prelude at the beginning where he was talking about the process of writing it. And one of the things that he said about American Dream was, a lot of people said this play was offensive. I hope it was. That was my intent, was to offend people. And like that, okay, if that's how you wanted to write these, like, job well done. Like, that's these, especially for like the early 60s, are like really transgressive pieces of theater, but to read them now in 2021, it's like, this is so fucking bizarre. But I liked them. I would definitely recommend Zoo Story over American Dream, I think. But I'm glad that I picked it for book club, because we had a really good discussion about it too, where it was like, this is so strange.
Yeah.
Well, I think the thing with Albee that I like, because Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf is like unshockingly one of my favorite plays. But I like, and I think Zoo Story does a good job with this too, where you take somebody who is quote normal, but who also loves their like, they like cling to their like middle class identity, and like I'm got a good job and a good like family, and like this is my identity, this is who I am. And then he introduces this like chaotic energy, and like you see that like veneer of like normalcy crack, and like what are people like underneath when they don't have that to just fall back on. And I think that he does that really effectively, and Zoo Story specifically, like that's the point.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, it was really good. I liked it a lot. I also read, we talked about this a couple weeks ago when Stella read it, but I read One Last Stop by Casey McQuiston, who also wrote Red, White, and Royal Blue. I really liked One Last Stop. I don't really read romance. It's not my genre. She only reads it
when she's bullied into it by me.
That's 100% correct. Sort of like Warwick was saying, like, I'm not normally into that kind of like happily ever after ending. I like characters that are a little more dark and like have like a lot of fucked up shit going on. I find that a little more compelling. But I liked this because it's time traveling lesbians in New York, who one of them is
a mystery, and a pretty good compelling
mystery. Two good mysteries. Yeah, two really good mysteries that had really satisfying endings, which I liked a lot. And I also just really enjoyed, like, the sex scenes were good. I enjoyed those a lot, except for I texted our group chat.
Because one of them is stuck on a train. So yeah, that's important.
She's a time traveling lesbian from the 70s who is stuck on a train. The main character finds her in 2019, I think. Yeah. And like she develops this relationship where she then realizes that this woman is like stuck out of her time. And so they develop this relationship where they're trying to figure out the mystery of like, who are you, first of all, and how did you get stuck here, and how do we fix it? In addition to a secondary mystery, which is really good as well. But there's a sex scene that they have sex on the Q line in New York at like 3 a.m. And I was like, I have lived in the city for too long, because all I can think is, do not touch these handrails and then finger each other. That's so fucking disgusting.
Yeah.
It's so gross. I was like,
I had to stop reading. And I was like, it's
I
actually
did.
like a really romantic night. And you're like, no, they are touching things and fingering each other.
I was like, oh, you cannot be doing this on the train. This is so fucking disgusting. Like, yeah, it was just that moment where I was like, I've ridden the train too many times. I can't deal with this.
No,
That was like my only, right? Like, ew, no.
Can't do it. No way.
Don't touch my mouth after you've touched the handrail. That's disgusting.
Especially New York. I wouldn't do that on a Chicago L, but like I would never do that on a New York subway. No way.
No. It's fucking disgusting.
Well, I thought it was a pretty sweet and sexy scene.
I mean, I got through it and was like, okay, I understand why this is enjoyable, but I've just ridden too many trains. I just couldn't deal with it.
That you're like, I accept the time travel element. I can like bend my disbelief, but I will not bend anything for
unsanitary.
Germs are real. Oh, this is so gross. But I really enjoyed it. I was saying, this is like a kind of context-free spoiler. They threw a drag benefit, a charity benefit at one point, and the number of tickets that they sold in less than a month, I was like, this is the most unbelievable part of this whole fucking book. Time-traveling lesbians stuck on the subway? Sure, I accept that completely. You sold how many tickets in a month? Okay. I don't believe it. That didn't happen.
There are some good background relationships, too.
Yes, I agree. I thought that they did a really good job with all of her roommates. It was one of the things I said in our like book club chat about it was that I liked that something that's like a trope in queer literature right now is the queer friendship group who have no boundaries, and so they're like touching each other constantly and they like live in each other's beds all the time. And I thought that this did a good job of shying. They were like that. They were very close, and like there were a couple of scenes where they were like laying in their heads in each other's laps and stuff, but like it never got to the point where I was like, what are we doing? Like, do none of you have boundaries? It never got to that point, which I appreciated as someone who is queer but also doesn't like to be touched a lot. So I thought I hit a good middle point on that, so I enjoyed that. So I liked it. I would definitely recommend it. I liked it better than Red, White, and Royal Blue. I thought she did a good job. Like, Red, White, and Royal Blue's good, but I thought she did a better job of fleshing out. The main character is bisexual, but is effectively a lesbian in this. Like, she only interacts with women, but I thought she did a better job of articulating her bisexual experience. It wasn't just like Red, White, and Royal Blue, like, this is kind of a shitty thing to say, but he felt like a stepping stone bisexual. It felt like he came out as bi and was going to eventually come out as fully gay.
I hate eating pussy and now I'm going to marry this dude.
Right. It was like, okay, this seems like you're probably not into women then. So I get it, but maybe not. Whereas August felt like she was naive and young and virginal in many ways, but had like actually considered her sexuality in a way that I thought was more thoughtful. And so I appreciated that it felt like there was more reality in her experience as a bisexual person. So I really appreciated that too. I thought that was a really nice touch as like a step up from her in her sophomore novel. So I really enjoyed that. Nice. And then I finished listening to another thing Stella and I had been talking about. I love Christopher Moore. He's one of my fucking favorite authors. I've read like almost everything he's ever written. He's very good. I love his style. I was listening to Noir, which came out in 2017, I think. And like, I love Noir. Obviously, Warwick is writing a book that's Noir. Like, I really enjoy reading that and like the process of that being written. I don't like listening to Christopher Moore novels. I prefer reading them. And so it took me...
Because I tried to. I think it's because we have been reading Christopher Moore since we were like 16. And it's like, it's like a foundational tenet of our friendship too. But like, I couldn't listen to a Christopher Moore book because I have his voice in my head too strongly.
Yes, that's what I've realized is that I just have too strong of a personal narration that... The narrator for this was great. Did the whole like noir-y voice, did a bunch of like really good voice acting.
This voice? Welcome to my detective.
Kind of, yes.
Hey,
but it was
pretty
like
lady.
It was more because it's Christopher Moore. It's more like cupcake noir. So there's like a very bubbly like lady character who I thought it was fleshed out really well in lots of ways. But like it took me months months to finish it. And when I finally finished it, I enjoyed it, and I liked the back half of it a lot more than I liked the beginning half, because spoiler about Christopher Moore, it always turns into science fiction. Like, the first half of the book is very normal, is very noir, and then it gets to this point where I was like, oh, right. Oh, yes. There's a bunch of weird shit that happens. I don't want to give anything away, but there are two very specific things that happen that I was like, ah, yes. This is a Christopher Moore book. Okay, I get it.
Or
so I enjoyed.
Oh, sorry.
No, I was just gonna say I just enjoyed the back half a lot more than the beginning half, and so I like flew through the last half, where the first half took me like a month and a half to listen to.
Warwick, have you ever read any Christopher Moore books?
It's been like a long time since I have. I feel like I read Fool
Which is like his weakest book.
Oh, is it?
I
would
don't
disagree.
like it that much.
I would disagree with that. I don't think it's his weakest book. I think it's his weakest of his Shakespeare and like historical adaptations.
Okay, but I don't think Fool should be the first Christopher Moore book you read. And
No,
I feel
I
like
would
it
agree.
was a
Yeah.
lot of people's first Christopher Moore books, because they were like, oh, a Shakespeare book, we're theater nerds. Well, no offense, Warwick, but that's totally what happened, and you know what it is.
Yeah, it is.
Uh,
I feel like I either got it from my ex-wife or from one of my friends from Wesleyan. I don't remember which it was. I don't even think I
Yeah.
have it anymore.
Fool
But
is
yeah.
fine, but it is not. I don't think it's a good Christopher Moore book to be your first Christopher Moore book.
I also think you need a better handle on what his narrative style is
yeah.
like, because it feels like it's going to be a one-to-one translation of King Lear, and it is not at all.
Yeah.
And then you get to the end, and you're like, what? Wait, what? Why does Cordelia live? Like, it's so bizarre. So, yeah, I would agree with that.
If you had to recommend a first Christopher Moore book, what would it be?
Dirty Job.
Oh, really?
100%. Yeah. Dirty Job is one of his middle books, and so it uses some of his other characters, but that was my first one, and I just think he does such a good job. The main character's female, and he does such a good job writing her.
Yeah.
And I also feel like her experience in that book is, you know right away what you're getting into. Whereas with a lot of his books, it's sort of like Noir, where you get halfway in and you're like, oh, this is what kind of book this is.
A
I feel like
Dirty Job, for context, is like a woman who's becoming like a Grim Reaper.
Yeah, and I think he does such a good job with that one. And Lamb is also really good. It's a retelling of the story of Jesus Christ, but from
the perspective of his childhood best friend, Biff.
yeah, and like that one is very...
That was my first one.
Yeah, I think most people start with that one, and that one I highly recommend. That one's really good.
Lamb is really, really good, and I like it a lot. I think it has a lot... I think it's his, like, most, like, well-researched one, maybe? Or, like, well, I would argue that Sacre Bleu is too. But, like, I just feel like that one is a little bit, like, heavier than his other books. I would actually recommend the Vampire series. I think, because same thing with Dirty Job. You already know that it's, like, supernaturally stuff. But the Vampire series is really good. I think the first one is...
Blood-Sucking Fiends.
Blood-Sucking Fiends.
Yep.
Okay.
Anyways.
Yeah. That's a trilogy. Those ones are really good. And like Stella just mentioned, Sacre Bleu is about Van Gogh and is...
That's my favorite.
That one's my favorite too. It's really fucking good. It's such a departure from the rest of his books. I think that's part of why I like it so much, because it's his style. It still gets very sci-fi. It's about...
And very funny.
Yeah, and it's very funny. He is very funny, which is part of why I like him. But
he's
Sacre
like,
Bleu
if
is
an
just...
American or Canadian, no, he's American. If an American wrote in kind of a British style in an American way, like it's that like cheeky kind of like comedy, but it doesn't feel like forced or like I wish British. It's like American cheekiness, I guess.
Yeah.
He's got like a little bit of Pratchett or Bryson in like some of the way that he writes.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I wouldn't not recommend Noir. It's just hard because I listened to it. Like, I think if I had read it, I would have enjoyed it a lot more. But it was all right.
Yeah, I can't do audiobooks most of the time because I'm a very visual person, so it's hard for me to really kind of remember what happens when I'm listening to it. But B, I just, it's a lot easier for me to follow it when I'm the one that's like reading it and filling in the thing rather than hearing somebody else's voice for stuff. So.
Mm-hmm. No, I read two more actually. I read for I know.
Who are you?
I know. I've read a lot, but I read a bunch of like hodgepodge weird shit. for a project that Stella and I are working on, I read A Night in Terror Tower by R.L. Stine, which is one of the Goosebumps books that I read as a kid, and it scared the living fucking shit out of me as a child.
It's pretty fucked up for a children's book.
Is that the one? Is that the one with the Axeman, or is that the one with?
Yeah. Yes.
I read that one.
Yes. It scared me so bad as a child I didn't finish it, and so this was the first time I've ever read the whole book. It scared me so bad as a child I threw the book away because I didn't want it in my house.
Oh wow!
scared the fuck out of me when I was a kid, which is funny because like I read probably 100 Goosebumps books as a kid, and this is the only one that really scared me, which is why I picked it for this project that we're working on, because we're talking specifically about horror and things that scared the fuck out of us. Spooky stuff. So I really enjoyed reading this. I read it over the course of like a day and a half, but I was telling Stella, I tried to read it before bed one night and I got literally up to the same point that I did when I was a kid, went to bed and had nightmares all night, literally all night, like horrifying nightmares. And I woke up and it was like,
was it the rats?
It was right before the rats. So it's them being cornered in the staircase and chased by an adult basically. And I like got to the rats and was like, I don't even think I got this far as a kid. And then I was like, I barely read any of this book. Like, it scared the shit out of me. Like, I had no idea it was about like lost memory and they like go out.
Yeah, that's the part that's fucked up to me. These like little children being like, I don't know who I am. I don't know who my parents are. I'm stuck in the past. Like, that's the scary part.
Yeah, and so like the idea of as a kid just recognizing like being chased by an adult in a corridor you can't escape like really scared the fuck out of me apparently. But I really enjoyed rereading this. I was really surprised by how readable it is as an adult. Like, it's obviously written for kids. There's a lot of very like simple sentences. The structure is written, the like chapters are very short. It's very digestible, but it was like fucking scary. There's a lot of stuff in there that I was like,
the rats are fucking scary.
The rats are scary. The idea of like you're suddenly transported to a place that you don't understand or have any context for, and then your brother is missing and you are just alone there. Like, there was so much inside of it that I was like, what the fuck? I can't believe my parents let me read like hundreds of these books.
The first four words of this book are, I'm scared, Eddie said.
Yeah.
Well, and isn't it, this is like, it's like one of the early ones, right? That's like in the first
27.
10? 27.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So it's
not
fairly
early, but it's early-ish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The one that always got me was the Say Cheese and Die, the camera one.
Yep.
I don't know why. That one always creeped the hell out of me. But yeah.
I mean, we'll talk. Well, I feel like we can talk about this on here because the thing that we're recording with this is our tester, and it's actually going to be on our Patreon. So if you want to hear us talk about more Goosebumps stuff, you can join our Patreon, NYD Productions, at Patreon, and talk about it in our Discord and stuff. But I think the thing with this is I never read Goosebumps books because like was a chicken shit little baby. But like you just said, like it was really fun to read. It wasn't just like, oh, I'm reading a little kid's book. Like I am reading a little kid's book, but it was fun to read and like made me nervous and stuff. And like it was spooky and like I kind of want to go back and like read, because like you're the second person to talk about the Say Cheese and Die one, and I'm like, well, I want to read all these now because I never read these because I was like, I'm a little bitch.
Yep. Straight up R.L. Yeah. Oh, good.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
R.L. Stine is very underrated. It was specifically for young audience books. But I mean, like they're just good books, period, that kids can read. But I think they're also probably still pretty enjoyable and stuff. But yeah.
Yeah, the Say Cheese and Die, that one is very freaky. The ventriloquist dummy ones, I think there's 3 of those ones. Those are pretty scary. Honestly, I think about The Ghost Next Door all the time. I don't want to like give away. I think you should read it, Stella, because it's really good. But it's about a girl who is involved in a house fire, and then she like wakes up the next day and she has a new neighbor, and she's like, when the fuck did this person move in? And she's like, oh, I think my neighbor's a ghost. And she'll be like having conversations with him and he'll just disappear in front of her. She's like, what the fuck is happening? And so it's this story of her uncovering like what happened in this neighborhood and how did this boy get here. And I think about that book all the time. I think it's a fascinating way to tell a ghost story. I think it's very clever, and like as an adult who I like want to go back and read it because it stuck with me so heavily as a kid that it's like, oh, these books are very well written. It was one of those things that was like, it was a real eye-opener for me of like, children's literature isn't just dumb literature. Like, duh, obviously it has to be very well written. It's a whole ass job to write children's literature because you have to be very good at it. But R.L. Stine is a literal master of this kind of writing. And it was really fun to go back and read Night in Terror Tower and be like, oh, that's right. This is actually really great writing. I mean, that's why my parents let me read it, even though it was scary. And we'll talk about this more on the Tester episode that we'll put on the Patreon. But part of the whole idea about Goosebumps is that they teach children how to deal with the unnatural and what is perceived as scary, and it becomes normal. Like, the whole idea of these books is that a lot of them don't have satisfying endings. They don't have real resolutions, and that's the whole idea, is that as a kid, you just have to learn to deal with things happen. They're terrifying. You learn how to deal with that terror, and then you just go on with your life. And like, I think that Ghost Next Door is a great example of that.
Guess how many Goosebumps books there are? I googled it.
It's like 130.
Yeah.
235.
Holy shit.
Wow.
That's crazy.
Holy cow.
That's nuts. There's a bunch of like choose your own adventure ones too. I owned so many of those ones. Those ones were really fucking good.
Well, and
Yeah.
I never read any of the Fear Street, which were for like the older kids. That was for like
I
high
read
school age.
every
like,
single one of those.
or-
I stopped reading Goosebumps because I started reading Fear Street, and Fear
Yeah.
Street is incredible. I think that those are just as readable as an adult, like, because they're young adult novels, and so they're not written at quite the same like elementary level reading, but some of them are fucking terrifying, and also like teach you a lot about murder that I don't know is super great to teach to teenagers.
No, everyone should know how to murder somebody, just in case.
And Netflix did 3 movies from the book series, and the movies are great.
That's what I've heard, and I think they're doing more of those movies too because they were so well
good.
received.
Nice.
Yeah. R.L. Stine gave a really good interview about them where he was like, these movies aren't based on any particular Fear Street book, but they did such a good job of incorporating the ideas and themes of these books that he was like, I think everyone should watch these movies if you liked the book. So I was like, oh fuck, I should watch these movies.
R.L. Stine's a super cool dude. I met him at C2E2 a couple years ago. Nicest guy. So that's it. That's all I'm
Has
gonna
a great Twitter. Is a lovely
Oh,
person
really?
to follow
I'm following
on
him
Twitter.
on Twitter right now.
Yeah. It's just a pleasant old man who's like, I made my living scaring the fuck out of children.
Jack Black played him in a movie, so he's like, I'm set.
Good. His Twitter just says, my job, to terrify kids.
Yep.
Incredible.
That's who he is.
That's the same thing
And
Kellyanne
then-
Conway has on hers. Too soon?
And then I just read one more book, also by a children's author, but this one was, it's not actually a children's book or a young adult book, but it was written in a way that it's by Lemony Snicket, who wrote the series of Unfortunate Events, which is a pen name for Daniel Handler, who's also written some other very good books. But I liked the Unfortunate series. It's fine. I didn't read all of them as a kid, but I enjoyed the ones that I read. Poison for Breakfast it's short. It's only like 140 pages. But it's like a book about philosophy and death that's written in a way that could be read by young adult readers, but is also very adult and talks about the concept of like accepting death and realizing like you may find out that something has happened to you that you have no control over, and how do you handle that, and the way that the idea is that he eats breakfast and then finds a note slipped under his door that says you've had poison for breakfast. And so then he spends the rest of the book, it's a mystery. Like, who poisoned me? How did I get poisoned?
Am I going to die from it?
Exactly. Am I living my last moments? What does that mean about how I feel about my life and like what I've experienced? It's very dark, but it's written in a way that's so accessible that like I think it might be one of the best books I've read all year, to be honest. It was just so well written, and I love that you could like give it to a kid. And part of the way that he writes is that he uses a lot of very large vocabulary, but then immediately is like a word that is used here to mean XYZ, and then breaks it down in like kind of a funny way where it's like, it's a book about bewilderment. And he's like, well, bewilderment here means a lot of things, where it means you're exposed to something that you don't understand, and here it means that something is happening that doesn't really make any sense. And so it does a really good job of breaking these concepts down, like philosophy down for what would be a young audience, but is clearly also written for adults. And so I just really enjoyed it. I thought it was very good, and like it came up on my new release radar for one of the book club letters that I'm subscribed to. And I was like, Lemony Snicket? Sure, why the fuck not? I'll request this Lemony Snicket book from the library. And I liked it so much, I'm going to buy my own copy of it. So yeah. I really recommend it.
You'll let me borrow it.
Yes, exactly. So it was really good. I highly recommend Poison for Breakfast. Anyway, that's all the bullshit that I read. Stella, what did you read?
So kind of like last week, I haven't read that much because I haven't really been doing audiobooks because I've been re-listening to the Magnus Archives. I'm in the middle of season 4 right now. It's been a really fun re-listen because the Magnus Archives is kind of the thing that like kicked off me being like, oh wait, do I like horror now? And like now I know the whole story and stuff, so it's cool to listen to them and be like, oh, this is how that early episode slots into the like overall story and stuff. So that's been really cool. So if you haven't listened to the Magnus Archives, I do recommend that. And I've been reading like just an insane amount of fan fiction, so I haven't really read a lot of books. I did read the Zoo Story, I did read the Goosebumps book, and then the other book that I read, honestly, I'm embarrassed to talk about it, but like if I don't talk about it, I don't shame myself, then like it will just be something that I read by myself, and that's actually more embarrassing. I was like feeling some kind of way, and I was like, I just want to listen to an erotica book. It's been a while since I've listened to like a hardcore erotica book, and I've been reading a lot of queer romance lately, so I'll listen to a straight erotica. First of all, that's my first mistake. Mistake number 1. And then I was like, there's a lot of free books on Amazon or on Audible. I'll pick one of those. Mistake number 2.
Huge mistake.
Huge mistake. And I even like looked up like lists and stuff. And so I picked this one. The title is so embarrassing. I don't even remember the author. I have to look the author up. But it's a motorcycle club. So I've never watched Sons of Anarchy, but I assume it's just like Sons of Anarchy, but if it was an erotica, it's not good. It's called Reaper's Property by Joanna Wylde, and it is everything that you think it would be and worse. And I was just, at first I was like, okay, this is okay, whatever. And then it takes an awful turn, and there's like kidnapping and like Stockholm syndrome and like a lot of murder and questionable sex scenes. And I was like, cool. I wish I could DNF a book. I don't know how to DNF a book, and this sucks. And then I ended up finishing it, listening to it at 2.5 speed. So it's like, I could still understand it, but it's like chipmunk sounds being like, put the gun down or whatever. Not great. If you have never listened to like a hardcore sex scene at 2.5 speed where everybody sounds like a chipmunk, I do recommend it. It is hilarious. I will not be finishing this series. It is very bad. Because honestly, if I'm gonna listen to a book with Stockholm syndrome in it, like there needs to be a werewolf or a vampire or something. Like I can't be doing this with just normal people. There needs to be a better payoff, like immortality or something. Anyways, that's Stella's embarrassing reading corner. But I know I normally don't do this because I have like, I don't know, weird mixed ethics about talking specifically about the fanfic that I read. But I think that this is okay. I did link it in our Discord in my in the like link lounge where we all share fanfics, and by we I mean me and Joe share fanfics with each other. But this one was so funny, and you don't have to have any context for it's not like sexy or anything. You don't have to have any context for Supernatural outside of knowing like that Supernatural fandom is insane, and that the ending that Cass gets sucked into super hell and Dean dies. That's all you need to know. Spoilers, I guess, but if you exist on the internet, you have to have known that. So it's a crack fic. It's pretty short. It's only like a couple thousand words long. It's called The Jensen Mistake by Felshish. It is a play on The French Mistake, which is an episode where like Dean and Sam get put into like our timeline. So then they're like Jensen and Jared on set, and they're like, wait, we're on the set of Supernatural, but like what is Supernatural? This is our life. So it's like whatever. So the idea is that Jensen gets the pages for the final script, and he's pissed, and he's like, I mean, Dean and Kaz are gay though, and also like, why does Dean die? This is bullshit. And so he decides to try and recreate the magic that happened in the French Mistake, and it works. So then Jensen Ackles is in the Supernatural universe and it's just fucking around the whole time, and then he comes back and stuff, and it's so funny. It's really short. I will link it. It's really, really good. The summary is just reverse French Mistake. Jensen Ackles travels to the Supernatural universe because he hates the season 15 finale and wants to save Dean's life. Okay, fine, and fixed STL. It's really good. And honestly, Erin, you should read it because there's a lot of good Misha Collins, and you're obsessed with Misha Collins in it.
That's true, I am. He's very weird.
There's like my favorite line, and it's not a spoiler, but he like walks into Jensen's trailer like to be like, hey, have you seen the pages? And he goes, wow, weird vibe in here. That is my favorite thing now. Now every time I walk into a room, I'm just going to go, wow, weird vibe in here. Anyways, I am going to read only horror novels and horror fic in October. I already have like my list started, and we're doing an official NYD book club that you can participate in. Again, if you join our Patreon, you can you can join it for just $1, and then you get in our Discord. But the book that we're gonna read is The Only Good Indians by Stephen Graham Jones. So if you want to follow along, because we'll be talking about it on the podcast. Okay, that's Stella's embarrassing reading corner. So before we let you go, Warwick, we did want to do 2 questions from our big stack of questions that mysteriously fell out of the sky, and there's no reason that we have it.
Let's do it.
Yeah, they just appeared out of nowhere. Okay, first question. If you could swim in any liquid, what would it be and why?
That's not water.
Swim in any liquid that's not water.
You could choose water if you want to be boring as fuck, I guess.
You want to be a bitch.
Chocolate
Basic
pudding.
Bitch. Ooh.
Because I feel like A, the consistency would be really fun, and B, chocolate pudding is delicious. So yeah, that's
good
my
answer.
That's my
good
pick.
answer.
What's yours, Erin?
Damn, now I want pudding. Shit.
Yeah, I want pudding now too.
This is really good.
I'm gonna bring some pudding pops tonight.
Yeah, bring it to the bonfire.
Very similarly, I think I would pick like a jello-y, like melted jello that it's like slick. Well, because jello is not really a liquid, but like some kind of like gelatinous liquidy. I just think that would be an interesting experience to dive in and then just stop. Like, I'm very interested in what that feels like.
Suffocate.
Well, I mean,
yeah, eat your way out.
Yeah, you gotta eat your way out.
That's not how breathing works.
Well, I'm assuming that the world isn't full of jello. It's like a pool that I can climb out of.
Yeah.
This is a weird question.
I thought about beer, right? But then I was like, that's gross though. Like,
it would feel so disgusting.
I want to float
beer up
around in
your
a
nose?
pool of champagne.
It'd be so sticky.
yeah.
Because Jello is not particularly sticky. Fuck you. Okay, I want to swim in a pool of blood. Is that better?
That I was expecting you to say that. So that seems more on brand.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm gonna Countess Bathory it and just like or like bathe in the blood of my virginal enemies, I guess.
Just go to one of those raves like in Blade, you know? Like
Blood Rave!
Blood Rave!
Honestly, Blade, people don't talk about Blade enough because Blade fucking rules.
Blade 1
two-
rules. I love
good.
2. But
The third one is still fun because Parker Posey and Triple H are ridiculous in that movie.
and
like
the Vampire Pomeranian.
And the Vampire Pomeranian.
So Patton Oswalt and Ryan Reynolds have both told hilarious stories about working on Blade Trinity, and that's why I love that movie so much. That like Wesley Snipes would just get super high, and Ryan Reynolds would just be riffing to no one because he wasn't there. So anytime they cut to his reaction shot, that was like filmed completely separately. It's just like the most ridiculous story. And I'm just like, I kind of love the movie because of that.
I will not go as far to say Blade Trinity is a good movie, but I will always watch Blade Trinity. It's fun as hell. It's stupid. Like, Parker Posey is so good in it.
Prison Break as Dracula though, super weird. And like I like Dominic Purcell a lot, but man, it's like I was like, oof, boy, like
Oh yeah, I
not
forgot.
a good pick for that one.
Where he goes to the goth like store and they have all the Dracula memorabilia, and then he just kills
The
his goth
Dracula
kids.
dildos, yeah, super weird.
Anyways, all of the Blade
Right.
movies fuck.
Yeah.
What's the second question, Erin?
All right. All right, I guess we can ask this one since work. You brought up that you have been married in the past. What's your best piece of wedding planning advice?
Hire a wedding planner.
Yeah, well, yeah, hire a wedding planner for sure, or at the very least, hire a day of coordinator.
Yes, that's
So, period. Like that's
Yeah.
day of
that's
coordinator.
practical
100%.
advice. No, I honestly, so my best wedding planning advice is that the wedding itself doesn't matter nearly as much as the actual marriage does. So what you should do is you should plan a day that's going to be fun and memorable for you. Yes, yeah, it's a big party that like you really want your family and stuff to be there, but honestly, what you want to do is you want to create an event that you and your wife or you and your husband or you and your non-binary partner are going to enjoy and remember and talk about fondly. So if the two of you are super into like Renaissance fairs, like get married in a field and have jousters or something. Do whatever the fuck you want because that's really what's important. I think too many people want to throw a big elaborate party and they end up just hating it. And I'm like, no. Like, make something that's going to be a good foundation and stuff for you for the rest of your day. Don't just give in to stuff. Don't get married in a Catholic church by a bishop just because everybody else makes you do it. So, yeah.
That's good advice. My best piece of advice is to spend the money on a good DJ. Like, that's... I think a lot of people try to skimp out on that. And, like, if you're going to spend money on anything at all, literally anything, spend it on a DJ and on a good photographer. Because
don't have a band for the after dinner.
Never have a band.
Never
I've
have
heard so
a
many
band.
weddings with bands, and even when the bands are good, nobody wants to hear a cover of Beyonce. They just want to hear Beyonce.
Right, exactly. Just
If
get
you're
a
not
good DJ. That's the way
You're
to
not
do
going
it.
to hire Beyonce. Don't.
If you're not gonna, if the Red Hot Chili Peppers aren't gonna be there, then straight up, don't bother with it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yep.
I don't know why I thought
I
they would
agree.
be a good wedding band.
I think they'd be a great wedding band, to be honest.
This kind of goes hand in hand with what you both said. And like, I feel like everybody knows this, but I've worked in weddings for years. I think it is important to sit down with your partner and make a list of like priorities and not like, and I mean priority, like vendor priorities. Like for me, I was like, the two most important things for me are food and photography. Like, I've heard so many horror stories of having bad photos, and like I don't want that. And then I wanted really, really good food. Like that was really important in our relationship. Like we love going to like we like trying new foods and stuff. So like that was really important. But then, you know, you go down the list and that's how you budget too. But like most of my money should be spent here. And then if I have that left over, I can hire a videographer or I can whatever. So I think it's important to like make a list of vendor priorities, like what is important. Like to Erin, a DJ was like super important. Though my DJ fucked, so. But I also had like inside scoops because I was like, I've worked with all these vendors before. I like know who are good. And even as somebody who is a wedding like professional, I guess, like I still hired a day of coordinator. I did a lot of the work by myself, and then I handed it off to somebody so I could have a nice day. So we're skipping our rant rave this section because our rave is Warwick Johnson.
Woo!
And our rant is, I don't know, Cody Rhodes.
It's always Cody Rhodes.
Evergreen.
Evergreen, whatever. Fuck Cody Rhodes. So thank you for being on the podcast. Why don't you give everybody, again, the Kickstarter and your socials where they can follow and support you and Empty Grave.
So on the Kickstarter, it's called the Empty Grave Complete Collection Trade Paperback. So you can search for that. You can also go to warwickjohnson.com and find all the links to it on there as well. I link to it on literally everything. On Twitter, I am at Warwick_Johnson. And I don't remember what my Instagram is, but I think it's Warwick S. Johnson. Pretty sure that's right.
Warwick's Johnson.
Warwick's Johnson. So I just find different. It's mostly Reginald Vell Johnson that I post pictures of. So.
And then as always, you can find me on Twitter at Stella_Cheeks.
You can find me on Instagram at NYDurgency.
You can follow us on Twitter at NYD Productions, and you can follow us on Instagram at NYD Productions. And if you want to interact with this podcast specifically, use the hashtag NotYourDemoPod.
And then also, as we mentioned several times already, you could subscribe to our Patreon, where you get access to just an incredible amount of content, lots of extra podcasts, lots of behind-the-scenes stuff, show notes for extracts, access to our Discord, all for just $1 if that's all you want to give us, because we want to make this accessible for everybody. It's at patreon.com/nydproductions.
We really pushed it hard today.
I've been a subscriber since day one, and it's totally worth it.
Hell yeah, thank you.
The Discord's fun, right?
Yeah, I'm almost never on Discord, but it is fun when I am on there. So
I'm learning
That's
how
I
to
feel.
use Discord.
I don't.
Yeah, I had to bully Erin. I was like, Erin, you got to show up at least once in a while.
I don't know how to use.
I'm on
Discord,
there every
but I
day.
will try more. I'm an old man. I don't know how to use Discord.
That's how I feel. I'm like, I barely know how this works.
These
I'm
kids
getting
and their
pretty good at it.
tactics and yeah.
I only have it on my computer. I don't have like anything. I basically have like a dumb phone. I don't use any apps for anything.
I'm the cool one. I'm the young, fun, cool one.
You just call yourself a cunt?
Yeah,
What was that?
yeah, I definitely accidentally call myself a cunt. Because I was saying cool and young, and then it just turned into cunt.
Well, that was an accurate read that you just gave yourself, I think.
And if you want to email us for any reason, you can email us at notyourdemo@gmail.com. Also, rate, review, and subscribe. Share with your friends. Blah, blah, blah. You all turn this off. No one's listening. This is this is just us talking into a Zoom now.
All right. Well, that's it, everybody. Mark out.
Fuck off.
Woo!
What is this?
I don't have one.
Hang loose, friends.
Hang loose, friends. Just remember to hang loose.
Okay, goodbye.